Charles.
Hello there, Jason. How are you, bud?
I'm well. We're closing in here today, so that's always a good thing.
It really is. And again, I mean, this is just, I mean, it's a work of art.
Well, we've gotten to the point where I'm really just trying to impress you each week. But I will admit this came out pretty well.
Yeah, and there could be some younger members of the audience who are not familiar with Butch, Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which came out in 1969.
Right.
And it really is worth going back and seeing that movie again. Mm-hmm. It's actually quite interesting. The premise of the movie was that there were these two robbers, outlaws, who left an outlaw group in Wyoming and decided to go back to that group. Mm-hmm. And then held up a couple of trains. The first robbery worked, the second didn't. And then they had to fly all the way down to Bolivia to escape, Harriman, who owned the railroad, who set these bloodhounds on to catch these outlaws and make an example of it. Took all the way to Bolivia, and in the final scene, without giving away the ending, they're cornered by the Bolivian military, and they say, "We got an idea, let's go to Australia." To give it all the work that we've done with Michael Smith. And I mean, that's in essence what these people did. They started out in a swamp, in the rice swamp, in Arkansas, with this thing we talked about, the benefit where they got together some small little town called Gillette.
Huh.
Remember that thing where they would hold they still hold a benefit in Arkansas every year to raise more money than is really needed to support this football team in this small little town. It doesn't have enough people in it to really fund the football team. And to benefit, what they do is they overcharge everybody. Who knows what?
I remember hearing about this.
This is in giving. Yeah, this is we talked about this, but I'll refresh your recollection. Where that you pay the money for the benefit. It's more than you should pay, and they serve you this meat with.
Oh, the raccoon barbecue. Yes, I do remember that. Roadkill.
That's where Hillary developed her penchant for hot sauce.
And that's also where one of our crowdsourcers developed a very handsome graphic of Bill's Roadkill BBQ sauce.
Exactly.
Very good.
So before we get into the body of this, I just want to say that our audience consists of a range of people. I think some under the age of 18. So I just want to make it perfectly clear that when we set this up, you and I had some ground rules on this. In no way do we want any person in the audience to dare to adjust one vowel in this name. We were not thinking about that.
Right.
We just were. We were just all about Butch. We're not even going into the gender issues. We're just saying, please don't adjust that vowel. Don't do that, okay?
Right.
Especially in the comments.
Absolutely. And Charles, before we get into closing in on the Clinton scams today, I wanted to cover a couple of issues that are affecting Crowdsource The Truth. I've noticed a very strange kind of correlation between the amount of shows that we've been doing on Crowdsource The Truth that highlight the incredible information that you've been bringing forward, hard evidence of these crimes, as you always remind everyone, from open source elements that anyone can get, anyone can check. We don't need to independently verify the veracity of documents submitted under penalty of perjury to the IRS, but we can access those documents from the IRS website, from various state websites, from the Clinton Foundation itself, and we present those. And it seems to me that the more and more that you and I are doing, and the more we bring forward really important information from whistleblowers like Harmon Wilfred, Robin Gritz, we're bringing on people like John Solomon, we're bringing on Fabien Chalandon, we're bringing on Bilyana, all these people. It's been a really interesting correlation between the astounding revelations here on Crowdsource The Truth and the various types of attacks that the channel is facing. Now, forget about the personal attacks that I'm facing, I'll deal with those. But people may notice that we are not live streaming on the regular Crowdsource The Truth YouTube channel because it's been struck with yet another complaint. And I'm going to be speaking with Quinn Michaels tomorrow, who is a very regular a friend of the channel and appears on the show frequently. We're going to talk about some of the techniques that might be being employed, the use of artificial intelligence bots to strike the channel with various types of complaints. And of course, you and I spoke with Dr. Corsi, I think it was 1 week ago. He's experienced some problems with his YouTube channel. He also told us about some fraudulent activity on his Gmail account. So I've been putting together some information that causes me to believe that this so-called YouTube purge may have been a very carefully calculated strike by a team that is deliberate and motivated. And we'll talk about that some more tomorrow, but I want to let everyone know that right now live streams of the show are going to be available on Periscope, periscope.tv/CS The Truth. They're available on gab.ai. That's a pretty new platform that we activated the last time there was a illegitimate strike on the channel. And what I am doing now, because part of the problem is I think that people are gaming the YouTube system. They've figured out how they can strike what type of videos with what type of complaints to get the channel taken out. So to avoid that, and of course we always want to make this information available for free, but to avoid those types of strikes, starting today, we're going to be implementing a new live streaming technology that is only available on patreon.com. So the information will always be free on Periscope, on Facebook, on the vk.com Russian social media network. Privyet to our friends in Russia. But for people who want to avoid the shenanigans of YouTube and not deal with all this and want to get their Sunday with Charles information or their closing in with Charles Ortel information right away, they can join patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. And any amount that they join for will give them access to the new live streaming technology that will only be available on Patreon. So it'll be the same shows, but you'll be sure that whatever happens to our YouTube account from these malicious people who like to strike, they'll be insulated from that.
I'm sorry to hear about these strikes, but you gotta.
Oh wait, and while we're talking about strikes, baseball terminology, I'm wearing my True Pundit baseball shirt in honor of our very good friend Thomas Paine, which of course is a code name for an individual who you and I know personally and are very aware of his credibility and his credentials. And another one of these malicious individuals has co-opted his nom de plume, I believe, in an effort to undermine the good information coming from truepundit.com. So we want to make sure people watching Crowdsource The Truth should make sure that just because someone calls themselves Thomas Paine, whether it be on Twitter or YouTube, Thomas Paine confirmed today in a phone call to me, the only YouTube channel he has ever appeared on is Crowdsource The Truth.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And here I thought you were wearing that baseball shirt because I think, isn't opening day any day now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it?
We're both so into baseball.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I've done some business with the Houston Rockets, and they were, scheduling something with me, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we'll do it after playoffs." And I was like, "Great."
That being a
Dumb
basketball
question.
team.
When is playoffs?
Being a basketball team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't know when sports start and have their playoffs. Whatever. Enough of my jibber jabber. Let's get right into your very exciting presentation, which is what people are hungry to see.
Sure. So thanks for giving me this platform, Jason. It's a pleasure doing these shows, and I'd like to report to the members of the crowd that we really do appreciate. We're getting a lot of constructive suggestions, artwork, ideas for shows, ideas for guests, leads, and it's very much appreciated. To the extent we can act on it, we try to act very quickly. It's not so easy for us to answer, lengthy questions on unrelated topics. And what we've been working on with this really exposition of fraud, this dates back not simply for the Clinton Foundation, it goes all the way back to 2007, in my case, 2006-07, when I started focusing on corporate fraud, large, complex corporate fraud, specifically GE, and then later GM and AIG and others. And so it's taken a long time to change, the way people think about a company like GE, about a foundation like the Clinton Foundation. And now that we're very close to home here, and I think getting governments, state governments, federal authorities, foreign authorities to actually act, it's crucial that we keep the pressure up. And here, what I've always liked about the crowdsource approach, and it's hats off to you for coming up with it and making it work so well, is that you who are watching can do a lot more than simply watch. And you can send these presentations out, as many of you do, and I appreciate you're doing that, to your friends, to people you think should know about this, and most importantly, to anybody in positions of authority in governments. And we now have people who've actually gotten this in front of various governments in Europe, in North America, in Asia, and elsewhere. And we're really going to bring the pressure up now, because this is an effort here that, you know, it's not going to help the Clintons. Right?
That is not the goal.
We're not trying to help the Clintons, right? But beyond that, this is really a bipartisan thing. When you think about it, in the United States of America, cleaning the Clintons out of the Democratic Party
helps the Democrats.
It actually will help the Democrats. And there are some cynics who would say, well, why not just let the Democrats stew in these own juices? Well, the facts are, in the recent period, that would be the 19th century period forward, the only people in my family who've been active in politics have been Democrats. One was the mayor of Springfield, Illinois, from 1846 to 1849. Another was an aspiring congressman in Montana, 1900, 1904. But, you know, and then, you know, we wisely said, you know, politics, no.
I'll tell you, Charles, when the day arrives that we actually can have an art department, every time you bring up a story like that, there'll be a little cartoon with an ancient Ortel with your face on it, and he'll be running for mayor in 1850 or whatever it is.
Well, we have a bunch of the 1846 stuff we don't have, but we have lots of stuff like that. Anyway, so what we're doing here is we're trying to bring the crowd up to date with the progress that is being made, and there is a lot of progress here. The Clintons and others who have supported the Clintons have a lot to lose. So initially there was a lot of resistance, particularly when people felt maybe she's going to be president of the United States, and then after Trump won, you know, maybe they'll impeach him. Now we're in a place where it is, as we go into 2018, as we think about 2020, where Democrats are beginning to realize, actually, with Barack Obama out, and with the Clintons maybe out, there's a wide playing field, you know, for the younger group, the 45-year-old people.
The ambitious Democrats who might want to ascend to power.
Who might actually want to, you know, stay in power for a while. It's a vacuum here. And so long as you continue to allow these leeches, these corrupt leeches, to stain the, you know, what remains of the good name of the Democratic Party. And, you know, I gather Hillary Clinton's going to be in town here in New York a few weeks from now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to try to raise money.
For what?
For a new foundation.
Get out of here.
I swear to God.
We got to go to that.
I think the crowd has, you know, what I'd like to do, we ought to definitely figure out how we can get close to that. We'll never get into the...
Can't get a ticket to it or something?
I'm sure they have security.
Is it but we're not going to do anything wrong. We'll just go there and attend. I mean, is it a dinner or what is it?
I think it would be a lot more fun to be outside of it.
Troll them?
Yeah, a lot more fun, especially...
I got to call Laura. She called me earlier. Sorry, Laura, I got to call you back. But we should have Laura on that trip.
And the whole Haitian crowd.
Yeah.
We could have a nice, we could have a lot. You know, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Right. A lot of fun. Right. But anyway, so we are closing in, and as in the case of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid in the movie got away with a lot of mayhem for a long time, first in the United States and then in Bolivia and elsewhere. These people have gotten away with mayhem for their entire adult lives. You know, I don't know about Bill Clinton, let's say from 12 to 18, but as a guess, the second that guy landed at Georgetown, you know, and maybe before that in high school.
Did Bill Clinton go to Georgetown?
He went to Georgetown, and then he went to Oxford, and then he went to Yale Law School. But from a very early on moment, that guy's been up to no good.
Yeah, he's been running out of women to rape, so he's got to constantly change colleges.
And they've gotten away with this for a long, long time. And it really is time to send a clear. This is one where you can't keep Corinne Brown, and maybe she's an objectionable human being in real life. I mean, she obviously she broke a lot of laws, serious laws, and that's why she's in federal prison. But here you have a 71-year-old African-American woman rotting in a federal prison for an $800,000 fraud, while Hillary and Bill are saying, well, should we go to Chappaqua, or should we go to our mansion in D.C., or maybe we'll get on a Gulfstream jet and fly around the world? I mean, you can't have this approach. And if this lesson, this era, is allowed to stand unpunished, it's only going to encourage worse people to do worse things in the future. So it really is. This is, I think, honestly, a bipartisan exercise to make examples, first of the Clintons, and the others who would have supported and donated to the set of frauds, if they include the Bush family. I'm all in for that. And I honestly say this is not something that I want to gain any kind of political advantage over. I view this as an exercise in just saying, these rules are so important to honor, and these transgressions are so repugnant that the world must know about them. And so I'm really speaking to you today in the crowd, but hopefully as this gets circulated more and more around the world, people will listen to this and view it as a cry for help. We have a problem in this country, and there are too many people in Washington, D.C., in positions of power in state government who have been dirty for too long. And we really need now to raise the game, and that's why we're doing twice a week. Sunday to sit down and go in some depth, Wednesday to report on the progress that we're making and comment on what seems to be happening.
And without further ado,
we'll go to our favorite disclosure page, and you covered richly and ably the concept of how we do this. We like to work off of primary source data primarily, but then when we find secondary analysis, people like me and others who will write either reports or articles, we like to flag them, commend them to your viewing attention. Equally, when we see trash, we occasionally like to mention that so that you can burn it. But the approach that we take is to look at these sources, to try to make them available to you. We don't like to go on and on and on through lengthy documents, but we do let you, and there are many of the crowd who like the lengthy documents, we give you access to all of those so you can consider them, and even give them, those of you who have financial advisors, accountants, and lawyers to study this stuff, please go do that. And to the federal, state, and foreign prosecutors watching these shows, you do have a tremendous amount of financial resources and talent to go into this detail, and then beyond that, in your own countries and states, chase down the emails, chase down the documentary evidence, chase down the licenses that should have been gotten that haven't been gotten, and then begin to talk to one another. What I'm sensing now in my email traffic and things that are now coming across the transom, I think we're well past the stage where governments around the world are actually beginning to call the U.S. and say, hey,
what's going on?
What happened?
Exactly.
And what's happening, and how come nothing's happening yet?
Well, I think things are happening, and even just in the things that you share with me and the things that are happening, in terms of our scheduling moving forward, I do believe that people around the world are realizing that Charles Ortel is closing in, and they don't want to be at the back of that line. So we're starting to see a little bit of this where, Sweden and Australia and France and Germany. I wasn't going to say it unless you did, but we are seeing this kind of activity. And I think any legitimate law enforcement agency or authority in any of these countries is not going to want to look stupid when everything that you've been presenting for over 2 years and with great intensity over the past year starts to be shown to be beyond a doubt proof, prima facie evidence of fraud.
Yeah, well, and actually now in honor of Earth Day, which I believe, isn't that April 20th?
I don't know.
I think it is.
I think that's Weed Day. 420.
Could be. Also, Weed Day. I think we'll do our first It's Not Easy Being Green special in honor of Earth Day. And there's one that we can report. If this comes together, no guarantees it actually will come together the way we hope, but it looks as if there will be a series of meetings and press conferences and other things going on in Germany in mid-May, around a time when the UN is going to have a special meeting in Berlin. So there's going to be a large amount of large government, international government presence, multilateral government presence. The press will be swarming all over it. It's May.
A lot of beer.
A lot of beer.
That's October.
I know, but it's even better in May. Right? October, you're tired of all that stuff. You want your schnapps. It's getting cold.
Right.
But it's, the warm weather, you like your beer. Anyway, so the reason to bring that up, I've been refraining from delving into this, but there's something called C40 Large Cities Project, which sounds like a wonderful idea. You get all these mayors around the world to join this charity and talk about how they're going to take carbon emissions out of their power, and they're going to paint the ceilings of all the government the roofs of all the government buildings white and do these retrofits, and it sounds wonderful. And they have consultants speak at big banquets, and you get these reports. Really what's going on with all that is that you've got some corrupt companies and corrupt purchasing agents and corrupt bankers
pushing all that.
Pushing all these green projects, and it's a green project, of course. Well, don't look at the numbers, it's green.
Yeah.
So we're going to take people through that in some considerable depth. And while I a lot of what Mike Bloomberg has done, I have great respect for what he's done in business.
He was a good mayor.
And a decent mayor, but in business he's created from nothing against determined competition, this barn burning business that's made him a mega multi-billionaire.
Right.
But he got distracted as mayor and allowed himself to get involved with this C40 project and even serve as chairman of it.
What about banning soda and stuff like that?
That was silly. But he does a lot of very good things. He's also quietly behind the scenes, he gives hundreds of millions, billions of dollars away. And anybody can do that with a lot of money, but he does it very thoughtfully. So he's a decent man, I think, on balance. But on the C40 thing, he allowed himself to get in the center of it and to be chairman of it. And it wasn't a legitimate charity. It's never been a legitimate charity. And it's now linked to all these big cities around the world. So we're going to start hammering that. I don't know who the current head of it is. It might even be the mayor of a German city. But that's something I'm previewing, something we will do in a series, because it really isn't easy being green.
Well, and not only that, Charles, when you brought it up, it reminded me of an interview that Quinn Michaels and I did with Professor Jimmy at the South Dakota School of Mining Technology, where he spoke to us about the environmental impact of mining some of these rare earth magnets that are used in windmills. And it just caused me to realize that there's aspects to some of these green efforts that aren't necessarily immediately obvious, and just because something is sustainable and green, like you said, there's always somebody making money from it. And there's people in China whose entire cities are getting polluted by the mining practices that they're doing to attain the rare earth magnets that are needed to run those sustainable windmills. So who knows? Professor Jimmy was developing a metal compound that was like the lowest friction metal in the world, and he was talking about how if a regular internal combustion gas engine was made with this type of metal, it would be so much more efficient versus the lithium ion that you put in your battery in your electric car. So there's trade-offs for all this stuff, and it's not always obvious what the most green approach to doing something might be. Right,
and in particular, I think history will show, if history is written, that the period January 1st, 2009 to the present has been a period where central banks unwisely brought down the cost of borrowing, and that made a whole bunch of suspect projects look smarter than they truly are.
Right.
And government officials, thought that you'd never have to repay this debt. And so, we did an almost $1 trillion stimulus plan filled with crazy green projects, many of which did not work, and many of which our children and grandchildren will pay for a long period of time. So I'm not saying that, green, being environmentally responsible is a bad idea. Of course, it's a good idea. But you also have to be financially responsible when you do it. And you have to think the stuff through properly and objectively and openly. And you can't let academia force feed you a solution that just suits academia, because maybe the people providing the equipment are giving money to either to the professors or the consulting firms or to the institution itself. So,
well, and also, if there's anything to be learned from Professor Jimmy, it's just not always obvious what is the green approach.
Right.
So he told Quinn and I some really interesting stuff that people should check out. Now, Charles, I know, speaking of efficiency, I wanted to mention this because we've got the playlist and everything, and just the way you've done your investigating and the way we're presenting it to all of these authorities and law enforcement people around the world, it's almost like, paint by numbers investigation. These bodies around the world don't have to go searching around for all this various evidence. As a matter of fact, they can just come to this playlist here on Crowdsource The Truth, the Sunday with Charles playlist, and they can scroll through all of the 60 some odd videos that we've made. They could even locate their own country in here and really just sit back, relax, and watch the corruption unfold before their very eyes. It's an exciting way to spend a Sunday.
Well, actually, I know this is tough, but a friend of mine suggested, we won't use his name, that we now have, I see you have 60 here, and you have also other shows. I mean, just with Sunday with Charles and closing in, we could consider doing a child's coloring book. If you can't do the color, I mean, if you can't do the colors because it's not right, select some of them.
Right. You mean of the images?
Yeah.
Yeah, people are fond of the images for sure.
No, they're very well done.
We'll consider all possibilities.
So we'll move quickly through this. There's quite a lot of stuff in the news. There's a gentleman called DeRoy Murdoch.
I like him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And if we hit on this link, he's a piece that's really worth reading carefully and sharing. Russians, I actually was just interviewed by NTV for something that's a Russian station that'll air, I think, on the weekend. And Russia is not a monolith. There are good people and bad people in Russia. There are people who like the Clintons, unbelievably, and there are people who like Trump. And one has to remember that Bill Clinton and his first lady occupied the White House precisely when the Soviet Union sort of blew up,
right,
and was rent asunder, and when people like Mark Rich and others pillaged the former Soviet Union and got themselves in positions where they acquired assets at unfairly low prices and augmented their already gigantic fortunes. So it was a moment in time that was ripe with opportunity for corrupt acts. And these Clintons have deep ties, good and bad people, inside Russia going way, way, way back. Far deeper ties than Donald Trump may have.
That's a good point. I want to ask you something about the collapse of the Soviet Union, Charles, because everyone knows you had a very long career in the finance world. Cantor Fitzgerald, of course, was in the World Trade Center, like the 92nd floor, definitely got hit. A friend of mine worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, a guy I went to high school with. Sadly died in the building. I have heard in the documentary Anatomy of a Deception, or Anatomy of Great Deception, that Cantor Fitzgerald was doing something with financial instruments that, like maybe futures, Soviet natural gas and resources that were owned by the Carlyle Group and people like this, and that when they were going to mature on September 12th, and that when this terrorist incident occurred for the first time ever, the SEC invoked some emergency powers and cleared all of these foreign transactions, which sort of allowed them to slip like billions of dollars worth of theft from, I don't understand enough about how futures or any of these financial things work, but that's something for people to look into.
Yeah, I don't know about that specific incident, but I do think, we're in a zone where young people and people of all ages actually are disrupting the status quo in theory towards productive ends. And that really, I think, started happening in earnest by 1988 when the traditional divide, the Cold War divide changed, and when China and India were encouraged into the global, world system. And so there's been a lot of disruption. The one part of the world that hasn't really been disrupted yet, it needs to be, is the government, the public sector. And people like these people who were basically bankrupt in 1993, they had gigantic legal bills ahead of them, they had no money, no house, no nothing. How do people like this end up being worth $250 million or more never having done anything legitimate in the private sector, actually creating companies.
They wrote books and stuff.
Yeah, right. Those were fairly negotiated, right? This one and what's the other one? Bill's My Life.
All that sort of stuff.
But that's a good one. And then here we've got. I just hit the WikiLeaks one. WikiLeaks. It's not that one.
Where's my?
This is Strobe Talbot's book. Strobe Talbot's an old Clinton friend. And then I think, did you get the WikiLeaks thing?
Maybe I missed it. Let me go back.
It's under the Strobe Talbot. It's the second thing.
Oh, see, I thought that was just a carriage return.
So this is one. Note the date of this. This is January 7th, 2014. Okay. Now this is WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks, the authenticity of WikiLeaks documents has never been challenged. All right. How the provenance has been challenged. We don't know where these actually came from yet.
Right.
But if you can hit this attachment thing up here, okay, and you see this is a letter. This is John Podesta getting an offer down here.
Downloads over here, yeah. I tell you, it's amazing how they've been able to curate this stuff at WikiLeaks.
So this is, here you see the letter from the actual company. Now, the important thing to remember here, this is Joule Unlimited.
What's with the address for Podesta here?
I don't know about that.
333, Half Evil, the 9-3 Society.
But if you go back up here, see, this is Joule Unlimited. Joule Unlimited this is the US portion of it, but Joule Unlimited was a collection of companies inside and outside the US. This is dated October 23rd, 2010, at a time where John Podesta, with his brother, is off, doing public service and doing private service and putting companies together. The way this kind of stuff works is, if you want to pay somebody off,
you call the Podfather.
Yeah, that's the first thing you do. But if you want to do it, what you do is, if elected as a member of the board, you'll be granted a stock option to purchase 100,000 shares of common stock with an exercise price per share equal to the fair market value established by the board. Okay, so there's a correct way and an incorrect way of doing this. Whenever you have a new venture, you've created ventures, you know what it's like.
Never publicly traded.
No, this is a privately traded company.
Oh, okay.
So with your 3D company and other things like that, everybody has high hopes for a company, and you look at it, and you could get a banker, somebody to write you a letter saying this. If you want a low value, you get a banker's, not worth that much. If you want a high value,
yeah. Why does the board set the value? They're going to think it's very high, right?
Well, but there are actually strict rules that do get enforced if you have an IRS department in which Lois Lerner type people are not operating. But at that time, Lois Lerner was in charge of the tax exempt department. Who knows how many other people who are prepared to bend the rules were looking at transactions like this. So if you've got a slam dunk deal, if you've got a deal where somebody who's made money 80% of the time, is putting his or her personal money behind a deal in an industry he or she knows well, with partners and customers and this and that, you go to Jason Goodman and say, Jason, look, all this work you've been doing for me, thank you. Just don't ask any questions. This is a good deal. We'll give you this. Just you'll be a director. We'll have nice meetings. We probably won't have them in Toledo. Not that Toledo, Ohio is that awful, but we'll go to I don't know, Bora Bora and London and Paris and corporate jets and this and that. It's going to work. And one of the reasons it's going to work is that, the Podestas are tied, in this case, I believe it was with Russians, who were going to get the Russian government, through a government-controlled entity, to put a lot of money into Joule Unlimited. So Podesta put sweat equity, if that, into it. Nothing. Bupkis.
It's worth mentioning that this company is directly tied to the Uranium One scandal.
I know, that's why I bring it. Why
we haven't said that yet for the people who are listening, might not recall.
But anyway, so this is something that we really need to tease out. When I say you've got to go back before the 2015-2016 election cycle, I mean you've got to go all the way back to 1992, maybe even before that, to see under the H.W. Bush era, what were they agitating for in the Soviet Union, and what representations did the American government make to the Soviet Union as it fell apart, and to Central European states? What representations did we make, and have we honored those representations in the ensuing years? And might there be, it might not be as simple as a black and white case here, where everything we Americans want to do is correct and everything the Russians want to do is incorrect? Might there be some gray, zones that really need to be explored? So we go back into the slides. In recent days, we have learned that the House Intelligence Committee's report, in fact, will come into the public domain. And there you go. And they have to go through a process. The article claims, and I've heard from other people, that the report is basically done, but you have to offer the chance to people who testified in the report and commented in the report to look at what, how they're being represented in the report, and there may be classified information that cannot go into the public domain, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to find out what this House Intelligence Committee actually has concluded. Now, Shifty Adam Schiff and his colleagues are very fond of trying to say that because the Republicans voted to release this is an illegitimate report. That's not the way the Constitution works. The Congress is controlled for the moment by Republicans. This committee is controlled by Republicans. It is not the Republican report. This is the House Intelligence Committee report. You want to control it differently, go and win some elections, and maybe the Democrats will do that.
Good luck with that, Adam Schiff. Charles, do you find it ironic that Adam Schiff would be included in a committee called the Intelligence Committee?
Supposedly he's smart. I think he has more a problem with morality.
Oh, well, maybe. I met him on a train and was not impressed at all.
Well, he does represent California. Now, bearing in mind,
I like California.
I was born in California, which is obvious, right?
No.
Anyway, if we go back in. Now, on the one hand, we could say that Director Wray, who said he's going to double the number of agents trying to chase down all this information for good luck, the Judiciary Committee. Why is it so complicated to get this in? This is the next one. Yeah, why is it so complicated to provide this information to Congress? I mean, it just shouldn't be that complicated. I mean, this is a big issue. The FISA, Federal International Surveillance Court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, has an enormous amount of power. It is an unusual situation because I believe there's no real other side challenging the requests, for these special powers that are granted to our government to spy. And that I don't like that at all in the construction of this. I don't like the fact a lot of things that happened after September 11th, 2001, balancing the protections that we as individuals get with the need to keep us all safe. I think we've gone a bit far in the wrong direction. But I suppose it's good news that we're going to have now 27 agents working on this. But why can't we get, if there are 1.2 million documents, or pages, or whatever the right characterization is, if they're 1.2 million, why did they look at all this and say, you know what, we'll give you 3,000. You got 1.2 million, 3,000. That's what you deserve. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, there's no good reason for that.
For a long time there was a trend in digital photography to just increase the resolution of the camera. But about 5 years ago, they started focusing on the quality of the individual photo sites on the sensor, and image quality got much better. So I'm less concerned with the number of agents they have looking at it versus the quality and entegrity of the individual. You could have 5 people looking into this and blow the whole thing wide open. If you have 3,000 corrupt individuals, it's not going anywhere.
Right, exactly. Well, get Robin Gritz.
Reinstate Robin Gritz. Put that hashtag out, people. Hashtag reinstate Robin Gritz, please.
And then, we got Sessions here supposedly angry, finally, at the slow response. But I got to say, there are so many questions I have about this man and what was going on in Alabama. I mean, no disrespect meant to the many fine people in Alabama, but when we look at the political system in Alabama, we have a governor who had to step down. We've had multiple problems in that state. This man has, served our country in various capacities, but he's been a politician for a long, long time. He's certainly part of the Alabama machine. And, I'm wondering, there's just too many parts of this don't make sense to me as just somebody trying to make sense of life, that he would apply misapply the law and reaching the conclusion that he had to recuse himself, that only now would he be upset about this. I mean, it's not like Trey Gowdy and Jim Jordan and these other people in Congress are like never on Fox News every day saying, you know what, we got a problem here. They've been on, I've watched them in the same guys for I don't know how many different shows say the same thing. And what does it take to get this man to get off his ass and get shit done?
He looks upset about Earth Weed Day.
But so there's, members of the crowd, let's start tweeting out to Jeff, if we have Jeff Sessions' address, or to the Department of Justice or somebody, get the job done. We're paying for platinum version government.
Yeah.
We're getting balsam wood government.
That's right. I've seen Stealth Jeff Sessions on Twitter. I'm not sure who that is, but it's a good opportunity to remind people that they should be following Charles Ortel and tweeting useful information at Charles. He's just at Charles Ortel. And of course, you can follow Crowdsource The Truth on Twitter. It's going to be a good place to stay updated as the YouTube channel receives strikes from the various malicious losers who are out there striking the channel at every opportunity that they can get. You can find out where new broadcasts will be.
Right. And so the other thing, Thomas Lifson is somebody I know, an American thinker. I've done one article with him so far, but I'm going to be doing more. In fact, I'm going to do a lengthy piece with him explaining or trying to curate some of these videos that we've done.
Nice.
And I'll of course run that by you before I do it. But he wrote a piece here. I don't know if we've somehow missed it, but about yeah.
Sorry, which one was it?
It's this one.
Ah, yes. Huge.
So I think he's right on that. I think, everyone was saying for a long time, and going back to Clinton days and before, oh, this situation in North Korea is intractable, and and don't we come to wonder at this stage when we think about the swamps, that, if you didn't have a problem, you wouldn't need all these experts around to fly around the world and negotiate, as the diplomats like to say, negotiate. Negotiate. But anyway, you wouldn't have a reason to do all that. And I think Trump looked at this and said, you know what? I got a rotten basement, out there in North Korea, and I'm not going to build a skyscraper on a rotten basement, all right? So we're going to go in, we're going to tear the structure down, we're going to get the rot out of the basement, we're going to clean all this mess out, we're going to figure out the water in the ground underneath it, and we're going to start over. Now let's, how do we start over and actually fix this? And we had all these, Richard Haas of the Council on Foreign Relations, and all these people, say, oh, it's crazy. This Donald Trump is way out of his depth. No way can he get this done. And we see here, this is a monumental set of moves here. In the middle of a trade war, a brewing trade war, right? This president has put in place, with probably some career people at state and elsewhere and many helpers, he's put in place a set of dynamics which, if we get lucky, could result in the peaceful denuclearization of Korea. The ability of our troops that have been in Korea since the 1950s to come back home, which is an amazing reduction in the cost and complexity of our military operations, which would then put in place, apparently this fellow North Korean leader is asking for simultaneous meetings now with Japan. This is really monumental stuff. And you look back to 2009, and I suppose some disrespect here is meant to Barack Obama. The guy shows up for work, and Nobel Peace Prize, we'll give you that.
Ridiculous.
You can't be president without having a Nobel Peace Prize for having worked 10 days.
Well, all the community organizing was quite peaceful.
And look at how much more dangerous the world became as he was president. But this is a set of actions here. If this comes together, the combination of the South Korean leader, who is not, I think he's a left-leaning leader, he's not of the same political persuasion as Trump.
To put the woman in jail who was the previous leader, right?
A corrupt person, and there's a lot to go. We've talked, I think, several times about Korea on Sunday with Charles. And
Jared and Elizabeth Beck are there in Korea right now.
Enjoy yourselves and stay safe over there. Yeah. I think it just got a lot safer for you, actually.
I have a serious question for you, Charles.
Sure.
Do you think that Donald Trump will include Dennis Rodman in a diplomatic contingency to go to North Korea. He has a personal friendship with Kim Jong-un. He's worked for Donald Trump. It seems to make sense. I mean, all these Council on Foreign Relations geniuses who think Donald Trump is not handling this well, all of those idiots got us into the situation we're in right now.
I'll take it a step further. Do you think Donald Trump or Jr. is going to offer Kim Jong-un a penthouse apartment in Trump Tower?
Why not?
You know?
I mean, better than blowing them up.
Yeah, exactly.
Start making Samsung TVs and Hyundais over there in North Korea. I think it would be a good move.
Yeah, but on a serious note, I mean, if they're able to
serious.
yeah, I know you're being serious, but get this together. I mean, the poor people in North Korea have been so abused for so long.
Yeah.
And that North Korea, in geographical terms and in raw material, mineral terms, is a very rich country.
Yeah.
That doesn't have really electricity production. It doesn't have basic health stuff. Doesn't have, you know.
I hear the food is terrible.
Yeah, it's in the Pakistan club of countries, right?
Fine dining.
That's one of my first rules of investing. If the food sucks in the country, how could the investment be any good? Right? It's like, but anyway.
Oh, yes. This is
and it's worth mentioning here that, and this is Roseanne Barr, thank you for following me. And I think she follows me because of Randy Credico. And thank you, Randy, for
Now, but wait a minute. This is my Twitter. She must be following me.
She follows you? Really?
Because
Okay.
this is my computer. I didn't know Roseanne Barr was following me.
She also follows me.
Roseanne. Oh, I am following Roseanne. Great.
That's why I thought it was me. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
I don't mean to steal your thunder there, Charles. You're far more important than I am.
No, not in the slightest. But the point here is that this is actually a very, you know, I don't really watch this type of TV that much. I mean, the sitcoms are so predictable. Or, you know, if I wanted to watch Trump bashing, you know, and stupid ideas, I just watch MSNBC or CNN. But Roseanne, I would say
she's always been funny.
She's always been funny. But apparently, I watched excerpts of this show from last night, and I mean, it's killing it. If you go into the Entertainment Weekly, this one here, just crushing. These figures would mean something to you, a lot more than to me. 18.2 million viewers in the first show.
Wow.
Highest rating comedy telecast on any network in nearly 4 years.
Wow.
You know? And also, I love this one, and also the selection of the sentence. We can read this out loud. In the adult demo, it also trumps Sunday's blockbuster 60 Minutes episode, which featured an interview with Stormy Daniels.
Are we going to talk about that interview?
I'd like to talk about that.
I would too.
I'm going to give you, you're the entertainment expert, I'm not. But let me just give you, I'm like the man on the street reacting to that thing. The first thing I noticed is, you know, here you have a homosexual man interviewing a stripper.
Porn star, be fair.
Well, we don't know. Porn star stripper. And asking the kind of questions that are just like icky questions. And it was just, it didn't make sense to me. And people have pointed out her eyes looked funny. Was she on drugs?
Did you notice when they cut to the wide shot, her knees were red?
I didn't notice that. Is that a sign of drug use? Or?
I think it's a sign of crouching on your knees.
Crouching to, well, all right.
We don't have to go into the details.
We
we'll leave it to the crowd to figure that out.
Right. But after that show, and this was, I sent you the email. I mean, she's apparently appearing at a strip club near Pittsburgh. I hope it's not this weekend because this is Passover and Easter, but it's. I think it could be next weekend.
Free matzah at the Pittsburgh strip club.
I mean, you know, you're sitting there. I would have hoped. If you're going to feature somebody on 60 Minutes, you might say, all right, look, you know, we have standards at 60 Minutes. It used to be a great show.
When did Anderson Cooper get on there? I thought he was on CNN.
He's on CNN, and he's on, they made exceptions for that show. But the thing that was interesting to me is, you know, they didn't look ahead and say, all right, we're going to feature this Stormy Daniels person with her ridiculous lawyer who's an embarrassment to the legal profession, and that's tough to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
You know, we're going to feature her, give her all this hype, all this attention, and, you know, not ask her what she might do 2 weeks later, you know, because it's probably going to come up. Are you the same person that was on 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago? What are you doing on this, you know, lap dance portion of the, you know, or the stripper pole here? And of all places, some small town outside Pittsburgh. I mean,
she's award-winning. I mean, look, all joking aside, obviously I will support her decision to do whatever she wants. As she pointed out in the interview, the profession she's chosen is legal. So by that measure, I certainly respect and appreciate that much more than, say, Hillary Clinton, who's made her money by stealing it and deceiving people. But she said some things that were just...
yeah.
She asked Anderson Cooper if we as the American public had the audacity to presume that she might be doing something like this just for the money.
No, far be it from her to ever do that.
Her doing something just for money. And the other thing is, there was something that it just slipped out of my head. Anderson Cooper, so she wrote this affidavit in like 2008 or something where she denied having any kind of sexual relationship with Donald Trump. And she now says she lied when she signed that application. Anderson Cooper said nothing. I think any person cross-examining someone would say, Ms. Daniels, so you're telling us you lied on the affidavit. Why should we believe that you're not lying now?
Well, I think probably from time immemorial, before there were even speaking movies and or silent films, I mean, and before that at the circus
when
and
porn
whatever.
films went to talkies.
Exactly. I mean, for the longest time, entertainment and other professions sadly have, taken advantage of vulnerable people, whether it's men taking advantage of women or women of men, men of men, women of women. This has been going on for a long, long time. So I think it cheapens the Me Too movement to feature this type of...
Well, she said she's not part of the Me Too.
Well, that's a good thing.
She said that what she said in the interview, and I'll tell you, she did seem like she was being genuine. I don't feel like she was lying, but it's a difficult thing to sign a document that says one thing and then contradict it later, and how are we supposed to believe you? But she did specifically say that it was consensual, if it did happen, if she is to be believed. But here we have someone telling us they lied previously. Why do we believe them now?
Now, one thing that I did think was hilarious, actually, they had Sean Hannity is, of course, on a tear against Zucker and CNN, and he did a very funny segment last night, I think it was, where CNN had decided they're going to put the knife into Trump. So they said, well, what we'll do is we'll get a female anchor, and we'll do a focus group with all these self-proclaimed Christian, conservative, Republican Trump supporters to see now how do they feel having watched the Stormy Daniels thing. And then the CNN hyped it, and they thought it was all going to be knife and back, and instead it was like, you kidding me? What's a porn star here? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something serious to a woman. I don't believe that. I don't believe. And look, I think it does cheapen the Me Too movement to give so much attention to this. And our friend Kathleen Willey and Juanita Broderick and Kathy Shelton, who I met, and Paula Jones, who I met, and the countless others who not only were attacked and abused when vulnerable by Bill Clinton, but who that happened at the hands of Hillary Clinton. It wasn't that Hillary Clinton said, did the right normal thing and said, Bill, look, maybe the first time I'll give you a pass.
Yeah, slow down on the raping.
Yeah, twice in 45 minutes. That's probably not a good move. And very few heterosexual women, with a Wellesley degree and a Yale Law School degree,
put up with that kind of behavior from a husband.
Would put up with, and they might put up with, the errant whatever, but not raping somebody, And this happened, I believe that happened either right around the time that Hillary had just been married, or so we want to get into this whole comparison. Barron had just been born when this Stormy Daniels. I think let's have a grown-up discussion about this, and of all places, let's not select CBS and CNN, as the supposed arbiters of virtue.
I'll tell you who's taking advantage of Stormy Daniels, because she is an adult film actress who is 39 now, and they showed pictures of her, 12 years ago, whatever. There's a lifespan to that career, and 39 is kind of getting outside of it. So perhaps this is someone who needs money. She said she has a child, and they did speak about how violating this non-disclosure agreement, which we didn't, I don't know, maybe that just says, hey, you had a private meeting with Donald Trump, don't talk about it. Could be, it doesn't necessarily mean that something happened that involves them having sex. It could, but I don't like this whole presuming him guilty just because someone says something happened. We need some evidence, particularly when she's gone against it in the past. And even if he did do that, while many people would consider that objectionable, it's not a crime, and it's certainly a personal matter between Donald Trump, his wife, and this woman. And to air it out on the television as if him doing that would preclude him from being able to properly govern, yeah, why is no one saying that about Bill Clinton? John F. Kennedy was famous for getting down with lots of women.
Well, and the other thing, and this is actually in the investing world, and I think in real estate as well, comparisons are useful. You know, the thing I take away from this, remembering vividly what was going on in '97 and '98, because my children were quite young then, you know, and have the TV on and have to answer questions I really didn't want to answer.
Yeah, what's oral sex, Dad?
I had that question. Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
But you know, you look at the way that the mainstream press, the glitterati, the self-proclaimed, you know, front thought leaders of America and the world reacted. Oh, this is just personal. Well, it wasn't. It was going on in the White House with an intern.
Yeah, right. That's different. This was his hotel or his house or
which
something.
Which is not good, but it's, you know, the most powerful person in America, certainly, and arguably in the world, you know, was abusing his position of trust.
Right.
Even if Monica Lewinsky was, you know, let's say 20 years ahead of her actual biological age in her mind, you know, she's fully prepared and understood the consequences. She's come out recently and said she does now feel that she was taken advantage of by an older man in a position of great power. It's a kind of decision that, you know, you just, it's a bad decision and you should learn from it. And they haven't learned from it. Instead, they've learned the opposite. They've learned that they can get away with anything.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite crazy.
So if we go on to the next slide, and there are only going to be this one and one more. We have this, frankly, bonehead named Jennifer Palmieri, who was in a high position of, I forget what her exact title was.
Isn't she related to the Podfather somehow? Or working for him? Or
Maybe. But if we hit this first link here, not that one. It's a Yahoo story. There you go. Sexism didn't defeat Hillary Clinton. Wild untruths about emails are why she's not Madam President. I mean, how dumb is that?
Isn't this the same news outlet that published the Christopher Steele document? And
well, this is Fox News.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Yahoo News.
I mean, yeah, but this is Fox News writing about it on Yahoo. Yes. But this Jennifer Palmieri has a new book out. Tucker Carlson's going to be interviewing her tonight, I think, about this. It's an insider account. Palmieri was very much involved. I think she was, she might have been communications director for the campaign or whatever. And there's not one part of this that's correct. And shame on the book publishers here. I mean, you know, these book publishers, I'm told that it's actually, you know, it's once you get to a certain place, it's relatively easy to get a book published. What, you know, if you're thought to be an expert on something, and you know, people think about it, they think there's an audience, they view you could write either with an editor, doing a lot of work, or a ghostwriter, you get the book done. This is so obviously false. We've done multiple shows on this. That, you know, the email unresolved and still not yet told story about what was really going on with emails is precisely why a large number of people, certainly on the right, looked at this mess and said, I'm getting out there and I'm voting. And even if I don't like everything about Donald Trump, I'm not letting that corrupt
Butch,
exactly, way to go, into the White House again. I can't do it. We can't afford. There won't be anything left of the White House in the country if we let her back in with Bill and his troubadours. But
what is that? The cigar brand?
Yeah, I guess. But if we go back into the slides, it's very important. The crowdsourcers know this. And we hit this one here.
No.
That's the next one to the right. Yep. Okay. This is one. If we just look right here, this is an official This is the official FBI site, people. Right now, am I supposed to verify this? Am I supposed to go down to Washington, D.C. and say, you put this up for all of us to see, but I'm not going to trust it because it could be wrong. Well, maybe it isn't right. But let's get to the bottom. Let's see these unredacted portions. But look, let's just look at this first sentence. Do you want me to read it?
Please.
On July 10th, 2015. July 10th, 2015.
1 year before Dopey James Comey's little speech.
The FBI initiated, does it say a matter?
Well, it's a full investigation, if that matters.
Based upon a referral received from the U.S. Intelligence Community Inspector General, ICIG, submitted in accordance with Section 811C of the Intelligence Authorization Act of 1995 and dated July 6, 2015. Okay, this is an official FBI document. So this is before the primaries, before Bernie says that idiotic, who cares about the damn emails? Yeah. Before that, the FBI has an active full board. We had Robin Gritz on the show explaining that this is no minor thing.
Yeah.
You do start, I believe, in the FBI. You start with a small matter. They have different ways of getting to the full thing. To leap into a full investigation because a different inspector general says, you got to do this, means that there's a whole lot of information that people with the highest classifications have. And somebody, the president, for example, on July 10th, 2015, I mean, this referral didn't just get done in one day. They've been working on it for many months. So you would have thought somebody in the Obama administration, either using an alias email or a real email, or a real email account, or actually having an in-person meeting, let's say after 10:30 in the morning, would have said, "Hey, Mr. President, we got an issue here. This."
Why after 10:30 in the morning?
Well, generally he didn't get.
They don't want to wake up too early.
Not a morning guy. Some people aren't. I am a morning person, and I'm not. I go to sleep early. So some people like to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, and
You're right. You never know.
Whatever. But 10:30, maybe after lunch, walk by the White House and say, "Hey, listen, Mr. President, we got this thing, the 2016 election coming up here,
right?
And there are a whole bunch of Democrats who think they're going to be following you, and it might not be such a good thing if the person we select loses the general election, because if we don't want anything that might have happened from January 20th, 2009." Until January 20th, 2017, to actually be exposed to the harsh glare of Klieg lights by a rat pack of investigative journalists, independent ones like you, and people in the crowd, we might want to pick somebody who can actually beat the Republican. So that there was an investigation like this triggered by July 10th, 2015, means that Inspector General Horowitz, if he's not dirty...
Was that him? Was that hard? No, this is the intelligence
This is a different... So
do we know who that was?
We do. We do.
I
don't have the name off the top of my head, but we've done it before.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot of information in the file here. Okay. We've done a show, many shows, where we explain the reason I suspect this investigation was triggered is that once John Kerry became Secretary of State, people said, you know what? There is no Inspector General for the State Department.
Why not?
Why wasn't there? And maybe we should study that. And wait a minute, where are these Hillary Clinton emails? What happened with them? Right. And then I'll get them to you. My dog ate my homework. I'm working on my book. I've got this. I work on the Clinton Foundation. I can't get this together. And finally, December 5th, 2014, they get some of the emails back. So supposedly all work-related and potentially work-related emails go in December 5th, 2004. It's my guess that when the first pile went in to whoever got them, somebody said, this is not so good, and that's why it took from December 5th, 2014 till July 6th, 2015. There was back and forthing, probably, with Hillary loyalists saying, we can't let this out. And somehow, magically, under the Obama administration period, where a lot of people had a lot to lose, this thing started July 10th, 2015. As a guess, what happened is that when the FBI was told, and that would have been Dopey James Comey, right? he hears, well, you're going to have to do this. He's like, ooh, that's not going to be good. so let's get McCabe on it. Let's pay off McCabe's wife, and let's get these other people who hate Trump and other people, and let's slow this sucker down. Let's make sure that we're going to, your point of, rather than having 3,000 lazy people, you have 5. No, they did. We'll make sure, we'll get. Is there anybody who has a proven reputation for sloth? For sloth, who we can count on?
Gets stroked to text his girlfriend and don't bother with the investigation. But, what just occurred to me when you were talking about work-related emails? Of course, it brought me back to the really impressive "Oh No, Mrs. Bill," where Hillary tells you about how she's typing work-related emails to John Podesta. But Charles, last time I checked, you're not Secretary of State of the United States, right?
No interest.
But you are quite busy, maybe much busier than the average person, but probably not as busy as the Secretary of the State of the United States. Maybe on par.
That particular one, I think that particular one was like,
Yeah, I mean, my point being, would you say the majority of your emails are like, hey girlfriend, what's up? Or are they work related? Almost every email you send is work related.
Well, yeah, and it's also, I don't, one of the things we're digressing, but it's a good thing to digress on. When you look at Hillary's emails that were released, I don't know how much of that you've done that are on WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks, yeah.
But not the Podesta ones, the Secretary of State ones. Mm-hmm. An overwhelming number of them were from sycophants. Boy, you were fantastic. What a great speech. Wow. Those are you telling me there were no critical emails? No, we got a problem, boss?
Responding with yoga routines to all those people. Just send it back, you know.
So the point is that if we just quickly scroll through this actual document itself so people get a sense of how detailed it is, there's a lot of text in here. We're not going to try to read it out loud here. But here you have people looking into the initial email server. Note that this was the period June 2008. This is right around the Dianne Feinstein House meeting between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, June 2008, June 6th or 5th, right? So people, they did a lot of work here. There's a lot of footnotes. Just if you quickly scroll through it, you'll see page after page of details and blah, blah, blah. And then
That's a standard review.
Yeah, and then the thing that's really interesting to me at the very end, it's like page 35, I think, from memory. There were more emails or end notes, and suddenly you get nothing.
Does it tell me the page? Oh yeah, 23,
27, 31. I think it's like 30. Yeah, suddenly nothing.
What is all that? X?
Missing interesting details. Okay, so for people who say that they're for the publisher of that idiotic book by Jennifer Palmieri. Obviously, you didn't take the time to do any fact checking, to let her write a book and publish that book. I'm sure maybe they'll get, it's part of the Clinton machine, what's left of it, they'll get a whole bunch of schmoes to buy that book at full retail and then write Amazon 5-star reviews or whatever. We go through that again. But, this is a book Palmieri's book is a joke.
Interesting.
So,
no, I remember how I heard about her. She's emailing the Podfather in the WikiLeaks.
Yeah, saying negative stuff.
About Hillary.
About Hillary, yeah. And then this Fox here, Napolitano, and I hope this thing, not that one, but
it's going to be that one. Yeah.
No need, I hope that thing doesn't, well anyway, Judge Knapp, and I like Judge Knapp, I think he's a great guy, but I have to call him out here because, and I've sent an email to him saying, listen, you got to stop saying that there are no notes of the July meeting, the exoneration session in the FBI offices with Hillary Clinton, because that's just not true, and we're about to show you that in the next link. Okay?
He says no need for a second special counsel.
And also, I think he's wrong on that. His argument was that the argument he's trying to make is that the way the process works with a special counsel is you get a Mueller, and then Mueller just staffs his people up with people seconded from justice, with investigators from the FBI. By doing it again, all you're really doing is just getting more Justice Department people and more FBI agents, and you haven't yet established who the good FBI, who the good Justice Department people are. You haven't done that yet. And I don't know, he doesn't make the point quite that way, but that would be my argument that, if the problem with this investigative approach is that we can't be certain of who's good and bad in the FBI, well, let's put the Bunsen burner up under Sessions' seat, right? And say, listen, dude, if you don't want to do your job, right, then just, see ya, right?
Bye-bye.
Speak to Rex Tillerson.
Exactly.
You don't have as much money as he does, but you'll do fine down in Alabama.
I'm going to be talking to Larry Kleeman tomorrow, and I know he's very interested in being appointed as the second special counsel. I think he'd be a good counterbalance to Mr. Mueller.
Yeah. Well, here's the notes of this. Here.
It's this, right?
Yeah. Here we have it. On July 2nd, 2016. Okay, that cynic, and I think I blocked that one jerk on Twitter. But if there are cynics watching this, all right. You don't think this is a real thing? It's on the FBI site. Okay, this is July 2nd, 2016, a transcript prepared that day of this meeting. Hillary Rodham Clinton was interviewed by Federal Bureau of Investigation special agents, blank and blank. Okay, and it's an 11-page summary of this.
How are they ignoring this evidence and saying that nothing's...
It's the alternative universe.
Wow.
She's president in the alternative of America, in the alternative universe.
It's like the bizarro America.
Yeah. So we've been through this before. There's a lot of meat in there. There's a lot of redactions. But Robin Gritz would have friends in the FBI who could maybe raise the heat up here. Mm-hmm. And let's understand what I'd like to understand here, not as somebody who's in any way an expert on FBI documents. I'd like an expert on FBI documents to tell me how, on a spectrum of this is a tough investigation, and this is here's the feather.
Inspector
and
Gadget.
What kind of music would you like? And what wine would you like? I know you don't like coffee.
At your interrogation.
We'd like to give you a manicure and pedicure at the same time.
She's got the sommelier.
Right. Ay, ay, ay. So here's the complete file. This
one?
Yep. Now, when we started on this, it had only 17 pieces.
Right.
And I checked, you don't need to hit the recently added thing, but the crowdsourcers...
Oh, it's 19 now, yeah.
It's 19. And there's a lot of information. We did a very lengthy set of shows where we took people through each dump, how many pages we suspected were missing, mm-hmm. and how many were supplied. And over 1,000 pages were supplied, and 4,000 or 5,000 are missing. So the FBI has, of course, all of the missing pages, and they've only elected to show us some of them. We need to see all of this. We need to understand the depth of corruption in the Justice Department, in the FBI. We need to understand why Hillary Clinton was treated, like it didn't matter what she did. I mean, we're a whole bunch of people by July 10th, 2015 saying, she's going to win, and she's got a temper, and I'd rather be on her good side than her bad side. So let's, she's corrupt. We'll have this dirt on her. She can't go too far, right? Because I'll be the FBI director, and I'll know that she knew that she was corrupt. So I'll actually be owning her.
Right, right.
And that's the most dangerous thing of all this, that we did not sign up for a system in this country where the people in the FBI and the people in the CIA, just basically ran everything and created side businesses and insider trading and drug dealing and all this kind of stuff and parked it in offshore slush funds. That's not what we signed up for here. And it's not something that any Republican, any Democrat, any independent person should feel happy about. So for the skeptics out there, you want to see and judge for yourself whether there was a real investigation. There's a lot of information in here. You will see that there was a real investigation, and you will see that somebody at the very top decided to game the system. By October of 2015, Barack Obama was being interviewed saying, she didn't mean to do anything bad.
She wouldn't do it again, Charles.
Yeah, right.
It's because it's going to be hard to host an email server from Joliet.
That's right. She's lucky. But anyway, then we've been on this one before, but it's useful. This is the famous search warrant escapade where the New York office
for Wiener's laptop
had a laptop with potentially a lot of its. If you hit in here, that thing, it'll pop up down here.
Nope, there it is.
Okay, good. This is a good one, particularly for the crowdsourcers to look at and tweet this out. and say, hey guys, ladies, what was going on? Why did you seize this laptop by September of 2016, well before the election? Why did you hold it in a New York office of the FBI and not investigate it until October 30th, 2016? Okay, right before the election. What was going on there? How many people at the FBI knew about this and said, we can't let this happen, And then who were the courageous people who said, no, I want to see what's on that? And then what was the counterattack? And why ultimately do we still not know what was on this Wiener laptop?
Yeah, that's a very serious question. Why do we not know what's on that laptop?
Right. So if we go back into the slides, here we have news that Meadows, who is a tough and good guy, Republican from North Carolina, is now saying he wants to see all of these text messages as soon as possible. There's a new one. It says, first line made me smile. Includes a link to July 25th, 2016. Remember, that's several weeks after Hillary's exoneration interview.
Oh, yeah, right.
We need potentially unpleasant news for Jim Comey. We need you to intervene in the 2016 election again. I mean, I'm sorry. There's no...
FBI is not supposed to intervene in the election.
And this page, needs to have her ticket punched here, as does Mr. Stroke.
Yes.
And who would have thought? The gods are smiling here and saying, we're gonna really spice it up a little bit. We got Stormy Daniels, we got Page, we got Stroke, we got all these funny names. Comey,
yes,
Dopey James.
Stroke. You could have Stormy Daniels doing the stroking.
Yeah, there's not going to be much of that stroking.
Really crazy.
So the other thing I'd like to mention here is that I have a big problem with this. I don't think that senior members of the executive branch, senators, whatever, should be using pseudonym emails.
This is a big problem.
It's a massive problem. It's just like for YouTube.
That's what I'm saying. The whole problem of anonymity. That, on the one hand, when we have witnesses who are going to be intimidated and things like that, we need to protect the anonymity. People's families shouldn't have to be at risk when they want to be journalists or they want to reveal crimes within a corrupt organization. But at the same time, this anonymity, it's abused by people that would do bad stuff, like this guy, who I sadly voted for, I know.
I didn't say a word.
But for the President of the United States to be sending communications to the Secretary of State under an anonymous email is just such a gross abuse, it almost screams criminal activity.
Right, exactly. And especially when you have, it's not like we're talking about a government that spends, $1 million a year. We're spending more than $6 trillion a year. We have a stimulus plan, and Barack
Obama's got to go kite surfing, Charles.
He's got to have a yacht, man. He can't be slumming around.
Come on.
Old rowboat dinghy.
Couple mansions. Give the guy a break.
No,
but pay for all those anonymous email addresses.
Right, it's bleach bidding. But it's crazy land to me to think that we would allow this. And here you have, think about the judgment in 2009 and 10 to say, all right, I got to do a big stimulus. So the man I'm going to put in charge of that is a combination of Jeff Immelt, who did such a great job with GE, and I'm going to also, on these green projects, I'm going to involve John Podesta, who doesn't have any conflicts. It's just crazy stuff. And I think, the people of the United States, anybody engaged, for example, in the financial securities industry, understands that the regulations are very tough. You are not allowed to conduct business using a personal email account if you're engaged in the securities business. You're not allowed to do that because the SEC can't track that. So they mete out serious fines and penalties when you start doing that. I know of somebody who was tagged for that.
Wow.
And so to suggest that you're going to fish rods from the head, you're going to let the president have a personal BlackBerry, supposedly secure, and a personal, at least one alias email account that we know about. How about the ones we don't know about?
Right.
President Obama speaks Arabic.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Of course, fluently.
From Pakistan.
Well, I think he learned that actually in Indonesia, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, Indonesia they speak Arabic.
I got to tell you something. I mean, beyond like Spanish, French, German, Italian, it's like, the hell are you doing speaking that language?
Actually, Arabic is, I had the pleasure when I was 19.
Chinese.
19, I had the pleasure of spending a number of months in Cairo, supposedly working. And there's no job for me to do, but I was being paid, so I felt, I was ready for government.
It's a government job, exactly.
Ready for government. But the thing you do learn about Arabic, and I don't remember any of these words, is if you like to curse, the curses in Arabic they sound wonderful, and it's not just dropping the F-bomb. They have this long, elaborate way of saying you're lower than this, on the top of this, below that, in the middle of that. I mean, it's just very, very, very good stuff.
That's funny.
But anyway, so I guess the final thing here, and believe it or not, we're record time here. I think, Barack Obama should not have immunity from investigation here.
Hell no.
Right, and it's great. He's our first African-American president. I hope there will be other milestones set, various reasons. But, I think there is no question that the decision to have secret servers and secret alias email accounts and to allow the Clinton Foundation to escalate in the complexity and size of its frauds, beginning as Hillary was being considered for Secretary of State, maybe earlier in June of 2008, and then right down through the entire length of Barack Obama's presidency. Don't tell me that there's no evidence that somebody inside the inner circle of the Barack Obama administration, just don't try to tell me that nobody in the administration understood what Hillary was actually doing.
No, they knew
and that
very
then
well.
raises the question of how many other secret servers are there?
Right.
And who actually made those decisions? And did the FBI know about this? We have these 17 spy agencies and that idiot Clapper and others, who Clapper, I mean, I'm amazed. That guy's, I can tell you one thing, he's never played poker in his life. And I don't like poker, but that man, it's like a flashing light over his head. I'm lying, but I'm telling you the truth, I'm lying.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that none of these people who are vacuuming all the metadata, that nobody noticed that Hillary was using these secret emails, these ridiculous addresses.
Well,
Nobody
we saw
knows.
it in the WikiLeaks. Was it Donna Brazil who was emailing the Podfather that said, we got to do something about this? Or no, it was Lynch. It was Loretta Lynch saying that Obama has emails from Hillary Clinton that are from an email address other than state.gov server.
Well, but if we think about, your own case, when you were, let's say, 12 or 14, you were probably very proficient with computers, as a guess.
I think I got my first computer when I was 13.
All right.
But I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was 1980 something.
Previous millennium.
That's right.
But
yeah, this is one of the wind-up computers made of stone.
Gerbils or like
Yeah.
power source. Anyway, but the point is, what really probably happened is that a private contractor like Edward Snowden, a younger guy who's really proficient, or Quinn Michaels or somebody like that, who didn't even necessarily go to college because they're so interested in computers. Somebody like that, a hacker, would have noticed, wait a minute, and think of the exposure, the vulnerability that created for all of us, Republicans and Democrats. When a big bomb happens again, it's not going to only go to a Democratic neighborhood or a Republican neighborhood or an independent or agnostic. It's going to hit a lot of people without regard to their political persuasion. And instead of running around trying to get book deals and running around trying to get money for your foundation or directorships or investment deals, if you're going to be the President of the United States, you're going to be the Secretary of State, you're going to be in the Cabinet, Senate, et cetera, you better be spending 24/7 figuring out how to keep all of us safe and figuring out what our vulnerabilities are and not assuming that this kind of sloppy bullshit won't get noticed by our dread adversaries.
I think there's something else to be said about this. Barack Obama, whatever we want to say about him, he certainly was not unintelligent or unsophisticated. I think George W. can get away with that excuse. Whatever he didn't know about, it's legitimate to presume that he's an idiot. But Barack Obama was very intelligent, even if his purpose might have been sinister. He is the first social media president. He is the first president to ever send a tweet. He is the first president to have a chief information officer. So even if he himself is not sufficiently computer literate to know these things, the fact that he has assigned a presidential chief information officer, that guy should say, hey, wait a minute, your Secretary of State is not using the proper security protocols. You need to make sure that you're not, why isn't, they should arrest her right there.
Yeah, and the other thing is, just because, we've had it in many countries, just because a popular, criminally prone person, to say, pick on Bill Clinton a little bit, wins the office of presidency, it shouldn't be the case that that person then says, all right, I'm president, jackpot. My brother, he's going to be in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Right? We'll get my wife, she's in charge of I don't know what, corruption.
Yeah.
You can't, you got to have standards that make sense here. And when there are variances, when you have a guy who was at Ben Rhodes, was he the one who was delivering pizza, or didn't have much by way of the background, then he tries to get a clearance following Barack Obama's victory in 2008. And the Bush authorities say, that's not happening. You're not getting any security clearance. So then he becomes a high-level guy in the National Security Council once Obama is president. And there's a lot of debate now about how long it's taking Trump to get his people across the line. In part because there's obstruction. Schumer's trying to stop it. In part because there are legitimate questions. But I think putting it sort of in a bipartisan way, there ought to be a way of understanding who is gaining access to all of these high-level secrets after an election.
We just ask Imran Awan.
I think, we just ask a hacker.
Yeah.
Imran Awan is another one. Xavier Becerra is this loudmouth attorney general in California who's leading the resistance, hiring Eric Holder, with Governor Brown. What business did he have hiring Imran Awan and keeping that person in the employ of the taxpayer for as long as that person was employed, and we still don't know
what happened.
What happened then.
I'll tell you what's interesting in the case of Imran Awan. Laurel Everly, who was the renter at 4809 Sprayer Street, came forward of her own volition and contacted me because she was watching Crowdsource The Truth on the internet and saw a story about Imran Awan, and she had rented the home at 4809 Sprayer Street, which was owned by Imran Awan, purchased with a fraudulently obtained bank loan, and she presented us with photographic evidence from her own cell phone that indicated a Cox cable internet router in the basement that she wasn't even aware of. She just had a picture of it. She didn't know it was there. And Cox Cable, the company, confirmed that there was a high-speed internet account in the house separate from Laurel Everly's Verizon account that her and her daughter used, and we presented that. We also had Laurel's testimony that Imran had said there was a shed that was locked that had a light on 24/7 that Imran said was part of a cooling unit. The FBI had interviewed Laurel Everly. The Washington Post had interviewed Laurel Everly. The Daily Caller had interviewed Laurel Everly. But it took Crowdsource The Truth and the crowdsource community to drill down on that evidence and find that.
Yeah, look, it can't be easy. I know these people are overworked, and in the line investigators in the FBI in particular, I'm told most of them, 90%.
Well, they're busy avoiding persecution by Andrew McCabe and the leadership at the FBI.
Right, but it takes a special sort of person to sign up for trying to be an FBI agent and then to get the training and then do all this work, and they are. Most of them risking their lives for us every day, and for that I and my family, I'm sure you and your family, will eternally be grateful. But that's why it makes this case of McCabe and so many, it seems, in the FBI, these dirty cops. There's nothing worse than a dirty cop here, and it's time to expose the dirty cop fraternity in the FBI and justice and elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, we welcome honest whistleblowing FBI agents who feel like they don't have anywhere to turn to reveal this corruption. And if they don't think that I'm sufficiently trustworthy, they should speak to Robin Gritz. They should find a way to secure their identity. They could contact Thomas Paine at True Pundit, the real Thomas Paine, not the faker Thomas Paine from that other YouTube channel. But there's a lot of ways that whistleblowers can come forward, and hopefully the public attention that's coming to Crowdsource The Truth will protect some of these people. So if they can expose these things and make it publicly known, rather than keeping it to themselves, those that would threaten people, those threats kind of diminish when you expose them publicly. I think I shared with you that I contacted the New York FBI yesterday to share details about threats that I've received and the ongoing harassment campaign that I've been under by people who should be investigated by the FBI.
Well, let's hope those efforts of yours pay off. And it's great stuff. And we're record time today.
It's amazing.
But one thing I would like to just shamelessly self-promote is there will be an article coming out early tomorrow morning in LifeSet where we're putting the pieces together that the Daily Caller had a story, and I don't know if we have it, or I think we do have it. It's that right to the right.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. They had this story, they ran it about a guy, Jess Ravitch, who is accused of sexual harassment, but he's only given, I think, $50,000 to $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And that's not the best picture in the world of the Clintons right there, particularly when you stop to think that the Clinton, there are multiple foundations. There's the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, which is the one that most people know about. It used to be called the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, and it ultimately got this new name. In December of 2001, at the end of the first year where Bill Clinton was a post-president and Hillary was a pre-president, they set up a family foundation with a lot less scratch in it than the Bill, and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh yeah,
a few $100,000. And they took a tax deduction for making a donation to this foundation when it wasn't yet registered in New York, and when it didn't, I don't think, had received its full tax, federal tax authorization, and I don't see a record of them applying for New York State tax exemption. Maybe there is one, but there's not one in the New York State Attorney General files. We're doing a story, we did a story that was edited actually while we were speaking before the show.
Right.
It'll appear tomorrow morning, that showcases the period November 2nd, 2013 to the present, when the Arkansas-based foundation has given, the New York Foundation has given 53% of its contributions in 2014 and 15 to the Arkansas Foundation, without revealing in New York State that at that time the Arkansas Foundation had grounds that existed to shut it down because they had illegally placed the Arkansas Foundation under the strict control of the family, and you can't do that for a variety of reasons. Statutorily you can't do it, contractually you can't do it. This article will be out tomorrow morning,
right,
and I would encourage people in the Crowdsource community to read it carefully. If you like it, please circulate it to your friends. We'll talk about it more and more in the future with a lot more revelations to come.
But this is a nice layout for LifeSet. I just wanted to show people that big pictures draw you right to the stories that you're interested in.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that. We've got Mark Tapscott, who's I don't know what his exact title is, I think it's senior editor now, but he's comes with decades of experience in investigative reporting. He's agreed to come on a closing in session on April 11th.
Great.
And
very good. Well, I guess that's going to be all for today as you continue to close in on some of the most despicable corruption in our government. I hope that people will subscribe to the 21st Century 3D YouTube channel. That's a YouTube channel that I had in place many years ago for my 3D video production company. And the nefarious individuals that are striking out against our channel have not yet dug their fingers into that, so we're doing our live streams on YouTube through 21st Century 3D, and then after the show is done, it gets uploaded to Crowdsource The Truth. So if people miss the live stream, they can see it as a video on demand segment, and it will be added, of course, to the Sunday with Charles playlist. One nice feature that YouTube has added pretty recently is that the live chat comments stay with the video now, so you'll only be able to see those on 21st Century 3D's YouTube channel, so it's a little bit of a confusing thing. I am in touch with YouTube to try to lift this ban. You know, back to our discussion of anonymity, I don't really like this idea that people can create anonymous accounts, put in these strikes for whatever that might be, bullying or harassment, but it's an anonymous account. Now, we don't know how many complaints a particular facet of a video needs in order to receive a strike, who's initiating these complaints. I've had a lot of people giving me a lot of guff about how they feel it's their First Amendment right to have freedom of speech as an anonymous poster on the internet. I'm very curious to speak to lawyers in the crowdsourced community as to whether or not that's true. I tend to doubt that assertion because the First Amendment and the Constitution in general protects the rights of U.S. citizens. So if you're operating anonymously on the internet, how do we know that you're a U.S. citizen? You could be in China, Mexico, any other country.
Russia.
You could be a bot. We've heard quite a lot about AI bots. I don't believe the U.S. Constitution protects robots just yet. You've got to go to Saudi Arabia if you want citizenship as an artificial intelligence. So I fundamentally object to YouTube's policy of allowing anonymous accounts to exist. I think it would make much more sense if anonymous YouTubers were allowed to watch and participate anonymously like that. But if you want to generate content in the form of videos or even comments on videos, I do believe you should have to reveal your identity, and I would even be willing to submit a copy of my government-issued ID, because I think Google, they already know where I am and can follow me if they want to. But just as anyone has the constitutional right to free speech, anyone else also has the constitutional right to confront their accusers. So if someone's accusing me of abuse or a copyright violation, I would like to know who that person is, what their grounds for that complaint are, and have a little bit of a, I mean, I recognize YouTube is not a court of law, but there should be some more protections. Dr. Corsi has been very adamantly calling for a Bill of Rights, an internet Bill of Rights, and I support that. I think we need more protections. We can't just have YouTube and Austrian law firms and anonymous YouTube accounts accusing people of things and having actions taken that affect people's business, people's livelihoods. Charles Walton has been on the show many, many times. He was producing shows on YouTube for 10 years. It was his primary source of income, and then one day he got 3 strikes and was taken out. Mike Adams, the health ranger, same thing. 10 years on YouTube, one day, whole channel taken down.
Yeah, that's not good. And I think what we're going to see, it's a good point. We are seeing it with Facebook. There's a lot of pressure now. Facebook's imploding. And I think similar sorts of pressures are now going to mount against just what you're talking about against Google and maybe Yahoo and certainly Twitter, others, Facebook.
And I would add that, these alternate platforms, particularly Steemit, I have a lot of questions about Steemit. And I was contacted by someone who purportedly is in the management or is working for Steemit. I'm going to follow up with that individual, and I'd like to have him on the program so he can explain to us how it works. But we're going to continue exploring that because I've seen a lot of evidence that indicates that Steemit is either inherently some sort of a controlled scheme, or perhaps a group of rogue individuals have figured out a way to game their system and have taken control of it in a way that they need to get in front of. So we're going to continue to look into that. There are a lot of people who have called me and threatened me and made harassing phone calls about Steemit. So very curious to find out what that's all about. Charles, thank you for closing in on these corrupt individuals on this Wednesday. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to remind people that Crowdsource The Truth is not monetized on any of these platforms that we're on. So if people want to see the reporting continue, if people want to see us continue to expose liars who would have people believe they're revealing the truth, the most insidious kind of lying, infiltrators who approach us as friends with good information, but then we learn they're tricking us. If they like the reporting, if they like the exposure of criminal scandals, they should consider becoming sponsors on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or sending a one-time payment to paypal.me, crowdsource the truth. We are still accepting Bitcoin, and this QR code is one way that people can do that. Bitcoin is kind of in the toilet. There were a couple things that happened with Bitcoin that I think Twitter or somebody disallowed advertising for it. Somebody else came out with an investigation that there could be illicit files hidden in the blockchain underlying Bitcoin. So I think there's a lot that people still need to know about blockchain technology, cryptocurrency technology, how it works, what the benefits are, what the dangers are. I just want to be educated about these technologies. I'm not going to tell people go join Steemit or go buy Bitcoin just because. I want to know what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, and what some of the dangers are for the average user. And we're going to bring that information to the crowdsourced community.
Who knows? You might get to the point where you accept donations like gold, platinum.
No donations, Charles. Charities accept donations.
Right.
We are not a 501c3.
Right.
We're community sponsored, but gold would be fine.
Gold, silver, platinum, securities.
Yeah. Hey, whatever works. All right, Charles. Well, I'll see you on Sunday for another episode of Sunday with Charles. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll have Quinn Michaels tomorrow, and we'll explore some of this cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence technology, as we always do. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night.